Welcome to Digital South Africa Today 2022, the forum used to let Mzansi's digital data do the talking to demonstrate that this country has new gold waiting to be mined at scale. They call me Willy. I am the founder and CEO of Initiate Digital Communication Solutions. We are a pan-African performance marketing company with footprint in key parts of the African continent, but we are based in Johannesburg, South Africa. There'll be a bit more about us towards the end of the session. And on that note, the question is, what is today's session about? Let me just jump into it then, so that we get this show on the road. The question of today, the question of the session specifically, is about whether mobile data is expensive in South Africa. Quite an important question, given that mobile data has become like the air we breathe in this country. There are two approaches to this question, which I'd like to use to be able to qualify it. The first such approach is adding a word to the question, and that word helps to rephrase this question as, is mobile data still expensive in South Africa? Underline the word still, it's an operative word, and the reason is because the issue of South Africa's mobile data cost goes back more than a decade. And I've been tracking this issue of mobile data costs for a fairly long time, and I will demonstrate in a second. Suffice to say that there was a time when South Africa ranked amongst the countries with the highest mobile data prices in the world. So for that reason, this question with the qualification is quite important. The second approach is basically saying, if mobile data is expensive in South Africa, what are we comparing that to, so that we can then make the conclusion that mobile data is expensive in South Africa. And I will attempt to use the digital data to address both approaches. So hang with me as I do so. I'm going to go back to the presentation so we can then move forward from there, starting with the background. As I did indicate, the question of mobile data prices in South Africa goes back a decade. And specifically so in my case, the first time I wrote about cost of mobile data in the country was in 2011. I published an article in May of 2011 where I was indicating that the mobile data promotion by Cell C, which I crowned as the David of the mobile telecom market at that stage, their mobile data promotion back then, in my mind, it set the industry on a trajectory where it was not going to be possible to reverse it down the line, and I was proven correct, as I will show you in a second. And in 2016, a social media campaign was then launched. It was then called Data Must Fall. The phrase data must fall is borrowed from the movement which was called Fees Must Fall, which movement was launched the year before in 2015. And those of you who follow local news about South Africa, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, for this social media campaign called Data Must Fall, it didn't really gain ground to the same extent as would have been expected, but a lot was happening. The ground was shifting regardless, and again I will show how exactly that was happening. When you Google South Africa and mobile data prices, you get all sorts of articles coming up. One such specific article that I would like to refer to was published by IT Web um, last year in May 2021, in April rather. And it was based on a global study that had been released. And this global study was looking at mobile data prices for 1 gig of data, as it were, across the world. There were quite a lot of countries that were included, and a lot of African countries participated. Needless to say, South Africa was included there. So I will talk to that, to share with you the digital data and see what came out of that, to make the point about whether South Africa's mobile data price is expensive or not. And it's only just one of the approaches, as I indicated. And let's go to it. Okay. Now, here I'm showing you a graph which plots the African countries along the 1 gigabyte price spectrum. You will see that the country with the highest price for 1 gig of mobile data is Equatorial Guinea. On the other side of the scale is Sudan. South Africa sits somewhat in the middle, with a gigabyte of mobile data costing just under $3, or around 42 rand in today's rate exchange, between the dollar and the South African rand. Compare that to the African, the average for the continent, which is just under $6, or around 92 rand in today's terms. And what you will see is that South Africa's price for 1 gig is cheaper than the average for the continent. And in fact, South Africa sits at number 24 on the continent when it comes to the price of 1 gig of data. Number 24. The question then becomes, okay, what does this tell us really? And that's why the so freaking what question there. I would like to then look at 3 metrics that will hopefully help us get a better understanding of the price of mobile data in South Africa. These 3 metrics are GDP per capita, which essentially is an indication of how rich a country is versus the others, obviously. The second one is urbanization. We know that a country which has high urbanization potentially has better access to mobile data. The third one is looking at mobile download speeds. We know that potentially a country with better mobile download speeds, it means that there is a certain relationship between this particular metric and the price of mobile data. Now, I'm using scatter graphs in this case to map these 3 metrics. The first one on top left being GDP per capita. Second one, which is top right, being urbanization. The bottom one being mobile download speeds. I then plot all the African continents. It's those dots that you see, and I added a trend line. That trend line tells us whether there is any relationship between a particular metric. I did say there's 3, a particular metric and the price of mobile data, using this the stats from this global study, which was released in early 2021, as I indicated. Now, what you will see is that across these 3 metrics, the trend line, when you look at it from left to right, is trending upwards. In the case of GDP per capita, it is a bit steeper versus the other two metrics. The steeper the trend line, it shows the strength of the relationship between whatever that metric and the in this case the price of mobile data. So in the case of GDP per capita and mobile data, the trend line trends upwards, one, which shows a direct relationship of sorts, a positive, not direct, a positive relationship of sorts, which means that for any country that has higher GDP per capita, there's a chance that its mobile data price is also a bit higher. It is the same case for urbanization. You will see that even though the line doesn't is not too steep, but there is a certain positive relationship that goes between urbanization and the price. Again, the more urbanized the country is, potentially the price could also be higher of mobile data. And the last one is obviously the mobile download speeds. There is a certain relationship there. The point about these three graphs is really the fact that South Africa, as I have indicated in each of the graphs there, South Africa ranks fairly highly on each of the metrics, which then says, to some extent anyway, the price of mobile data in South Africa is not out of kilter, given that it ranks highly for GDP per capita. In fact, you will see that in this case, South Africa is the 9th highest in Africa from a GDP per capita point of view. It is the 7th in Africa for urbanization, and it leads insofar as mobile download speeds go. So the price of mobile data in South Africa is not too out of kilter. And you will see that I'm being careful with how I'm saying this, because the question still is it expensive? Because that question still must be answered, and I plan to do so as we go. So let's go to the next approach, which approach is, if the price of mobile data in South Africa is expensive, compared to what? I want to then look at consumer price index, which is what it's called. It is really a measure of price inflation from year to year over a certain period of time. I got this data from Stats SA. In this case, I want to see how the price of mobile data has performed over a certain period. And in this case, I'm talking about the price of mobile data from 2008 to 2018, because I want to understand if this price has gone up quite a bit or in fact has dropped, and how has it performed versus other goods and services, and most specifically the essential services in the country. And you will see exactly what I mean by that. So let's get into it. First, I look at the price of mobile data, which is included in a category of services called postal services and telecommunication services. Now, we know postal services in this country have dwindled over time, while the telecommunication services have really become a big thing in our lives. So we can then make an assumption that within the category of postal and telecom communication services, certainly mobile communication services have really become a key part, and by so saying, mobile data specifically. So it is bundled in that category. Now, look at what that line, which is a blue line, has done 2008 to 2018. Compare that to an average of the goods and services in the country from an inflation point of view. What you will see is in 2008, the line for the category that includes mobile data was fairly high, very close to the 100 the index of 100 versus the line for the average products and services in the country, which is fairly low. But over the years, the line that includes mobile data, which is the blue line, has barely gone up. And yet, the line for the average goods and services that measure consumer price inflation year on year has really shot up. Now, let's make the point because it is important in this case. I now looked at the line for telecommunications versus the line for the other essential services, in this case, water, education, health, public transport, and electricity. What you will see then is when we start adding these one by one, first, let's add water to see how that line has trended, which is a consumer price inflation line year to year, 2008 to 2018. You will see that it was even lower than the average CPI line for the country. It caught up in 2016 and it has gone above the average CPI line. Let's then add another line, and in this case is the education line. Similar kind of trend as water. Let's add another one, which is now the health line. Similar kind of trend, and let's keep going and add the public transport consumer price inflation line. You will see that it's also similar. For those essential services, as I call them, their inflation, consumer inflation, has really shot up from where it was to 2008 to where it ended 2018, according to the data that I was using from Stats SA. I now want to add the very last line, and in this case, it's a bit of a very sore point because that is the electricity line. You will see that it also shot up, and the reason why I left electricity for last is because, as all South Africans know, we do not get reliable supply of electricity in this country at the moment, and yet the price inflation for this has gone up year after year right throughout. So I guess the question that one must ask then about this specific example is whether we should be squealing about the price of mobile data in the years, especially 2016 to now, when you compare the inflationary prices of water, health, electricity, public transport, and education. You will see that the inflationary prices of those have really just gone wild over the years. And even though this analysis ends in 2018, I don't think they've gone they've done any swing in the opposite direction. We know that education is expensive in this country for all sorts of reasons. We know that electricity has been going up; it hasn't gone down. Public transport and health, for that matter. So you can make an assumption when you are in my position that things have not really improved. But now let's kind of add another layer to this, because it will make it will drive this point home quite a bit. I want to then look at market price examples to see if we can make an educated guess about whether prices have actually trended downwards. And in this case, I am sharing with you what has happened with now the Robin Hood of mobile telecoms market, and that Robin Hood's name is Rain. Look at the prices for the package, which is an uncapped data package for Rain in 2020, in 2021, and in this year. You will see that the price for the same 5G uncapped package has actually more than halved. Now, Rain may be a very small player in the market because you've got the two big ones, which are Vodacom and MTN. And the last time I checked, those two alone, their share of the market from an airtime point of view was over 80%. I don't know what it is for data at the moment, but certainly they still have the lion's share. The important thing about specifically this example that I'm sharing with you on Rain is the fact that the Goliaths of the mobile telecoms market have always been taking a lead from David first and now Robin Hood. For those of you who are following what's been happening within the uncapped mobile data space, you will know that lately Vodacom and MTN have launched their own uncapped data specials, which are very close to each other, by the way, almost a replica of each other for that matter. So it's an important thing for us to be watching what the smaller players are doing, because what the smaller players are doing tends to be mimicked, tends to be copied, tends to be adopted by the big players. They don't want to be the ones who lead insofar as bringing down the mobile data prices. So certainly from that example alone, we know that the mobile data prices have in fact been trending downwards over time, and in fact that trend is going to become even more pronounced as we go forward, because all sorts of interesting things that are happening in the country right now. So I suppose then the question, if we are to do the review, I'm going to jump over the next slide. In review, the question of today really is mobile data expensive in South Africa? As I indicated, it's in kind of two streams, if you like. The one stream is it still expensive? I say it is not still expensive. It has been trending downwards over time. And I hope I've demonstrated that more vividly with the stats that I showed you, the consumer price index stats that show that it has somewhat become flat for a good 10 years, while the other essential services in this case, as I indicated, water, health, public transport, electricity, and education have just been spiraling upwards, unhindered for that matter. I've also shared with you another approach, which was, if the price of mobile data in South Africa is expensive, it is expensive compared to what? For that purpose, I shared with you the mobile data prices for 1 gigabyte based on the global study that I told you about. Feel free to go and Google it. It is freely available on the internet, which showed that South Africa is actually sitting at only the 24th position insofar as the price of 1 gigabyte of mobile data. Those two approaches alone are telling me that the price of mobile data in South Africa is actually coming down as opposed to going upwards. That's me, and hoping that you've learned something from this. To kind of close, I just want to share with you then about us, and I'm not going to say anything. You must just look it up yourself. That's all about this session of today, and I hope you took something from it. If you've got some thoughts in terms of the other things that you think we must look into from a digital data point of view about this country, we're happy to hear from you. Also, remember what we are about as Initiate Digital Communication Solutions. We offer solutions to brands, as it were, and we'll be happy to engage if you're keen to engage us insofar as our core services are concerned. Until next time.